Welcome to the chapter on managing brands over time. So some of the objectives we'll look at are we'll focus on understanding the important considerations in brand reinforcement. We'll look at the range of brand revitalization options available to a corporation. We will outline the various strategies to improve brand awareness and brand image and define the key steps in managing a brand crisis. So overall, this chapter actually looks at the health and well-being of a brand. And this can be significantly affected by both external forces related to shifts in consumer behavior, what our competitors do, what the government comes up with in regards to regulations, technological advances, and other areas. So in essence, the macro environment and the micro environment as well. Now, the firm's strategic focus may force minor or major adjustments in the way that it markets its brands. So any marketing action a firm or a corporation takes today can change a consumer's brand awareness or brand image and actually have an indirect effect on the success of future marketing activities. So as marketers, we obviously have a difficult time trying to anticipate future consumer responses. So this chapter overall will focus on a few things. Now, an overview or an outline of the chapter is that the constant change in the marketing environment is one of challenges in the way we manage brands. Consumers change their behavior, competitors do new things, government changes regulations, and all these things can affect the future and fortune of a brand. We as a firm may have to make small or major adjustments in the way we market our brand. We will also have that any kind of marketing action a firm takes can change the consumer's brand awareness or brand image, and this has an indirect effect on the success of future marketing activities. Now, as marketers, we may have a particularly difficult time trying to anticipate future consumer responses because these new knowledge structures will influence future consumer responses that actually often don't exist until the short-term marketing actions occur. And as marketers, we need to actively manage brand equity over time by reinforcing the brand meaning and making adjustments to the marketing program to identifying new sources of brand equity. So basically what happens is we need to make sure that we're continually marketing towards consumers both in a short and medium and long term so that the consumer actually has an understanding of what is going on with our brand. Now, in regards to reinforcing brands, we reinforce brand equity by marketing actions, and these marketing actions should consistently convey the meaning of the brand to consumers in terms of brand awareness and brand image. So what products does the brand represent? What benefits does it supply? And what needs does it satisfy? How does the brand make those products superior? What strong, favourable and unique brand associations exist in the minds of consumers? Now, brand meaning in terms of product, benefits and needs, as well as in terms of product differentiation, depends on the firm's general approach to product development, branding strategies and strategic concerns. Brand reinforcement examines three key issues: the advantages of maintaining brand consistency, the importance of protecting sources of brand equity, and the trade-offs between fortifying and leveraging brands. Now, brands can never stay still. We need to constantly be moving forward and also checking and looking at what's going on in the environment today for us. So, how can we maintain brand equity? Well, by maintaining brand equity, we also need to maintain brand consistency. And this involves two key aspects: the consistency of the marketing support and the consistency of brand associations. Now, brand consistency is critical to maintaining the strength and favorability of brand associations. And another way to achieve a consistent appeal is through retro marketing, or talking to customers and discussing the fact that as a brand we have heritage, we have this nostalgia that can appeal to them and help consumers connect with their past. And you'll see companies do this with brands that people have grown up with as children. Now, inadequate marketing support is extremely dangerous as a strategy when combined with price increases. Now, brands such as Disney, McDonald's, Mercedes-Benz, they've been true to their strategies once they achieved a prominent market leadership position. So they've kept saying the same thing to all their consumers all the time. Now, there has been a slight shift in Mercedes where they're trying to go for a slightly younger market, but overall, the brand has still stayed the same. So managing brand equity with consistency requires making numerous tactical shifts and changes to maintain the strategic thrust and direction of the brand. So the most effective tactics for a particular brand at any one time can vary. Prices go up and down. Product features may be added or deleted. Ad campaigns may employ different creative strategies. And these different brand extensions may also be introduced or withdrawn to create the different desired knowledge structures in consumers' minds. So many brands have kept a creative element in their marketing communication programs over the years, and this has created advertising equity. Brands sometimes return to their roots to remind existing or lapsed customers and to attract new ones. Older heritage brands can reach into their past in different ways to develop successful new marketing campaigns. So what we discussed before in regards to this retro branding or retro advertising can be where, as a tactic, what we're trying to do is link back into our past. And, we're trying to tie into the way that our advertising was. Now, retro branding can activate and strengthen brand associations. That would be virtually impossible to recreate with new advertising today. Now, heritage can be a powerful point of difference as long as it conveys, expertise, longevity, and experience. So just not that we've been around for a long time, but that we actually stand for something. Anniversaries and milestones of longevity can be excellent opportunities to launch a campaign to celebrate. And you'll see this where companies discuss things like we've been in business for 25, 50, 75, 100 years, etc. These major milestones. So marketers, therefore, should focus as much on the future of the brand as on its past. And obviously, we need to think about emphasizing how all that brand has gone through will benefit its customers in the future. Now, research shows that nostalgic advertising can actually positively influence consumers. One study found that intentionally nostalgic advertisements yielded favorable attitudes towards the advertiser and the brand. Another study identified a potential source of nostalgic purchase behavior called intergenerational influence, or the influence of a parent's purchase behavior and brand attitudes on a child's behavior and attitudes. So when you move out of home and you start buying things like washing powder and dishwashing liquid and brands of washing machines, etc., you generally start to look back at what your parents bought and think, if it was good enough for them, it's probably good enough for me. So some brands attempt to make the case that their enduring appeal is still relevant for lapsed users today. So how do we protect sources of brand equity? Now, consistency guides strategic direction, and this doesn't prescribe the tactics of the supporting marketing program for the brand at any one point in time. We need to make sure that unless there's a change in consumer behavior or competition or as a company we make the strategic positioning of the brand less powerful, there is likely little need to deviate from a successful positioning. Think about how we've discussed Volvo and how their position is currently lost in the ether. Now, brands should always look for new powerful sources of brand equity, but the top priority is to make sure we preserve and defend those that already exist. But remember, sometimes brand crises are unavoidable as well. Now, the two principles to keep in mind as we craft a response to a crisis or a scandal are basically swiftness and sincerity. So we need to be quick and we need to be sincere. The longer it takes for us to respond to a marketing crisis, the more likely customers form negative impressions. And this is because you have unfavorable media coverage, you have word of mouth, you have Facebook where discussions spread quickly, and they might actually also permanently then switch to alternatives. Now, public acknowledgement of the severity of the impact on consumers and the willingness for us to take necessary and feasible steps to solve the crisis as a corporation reduce the chance that consumers will form negative attributions for the firm's behaviour. So we need to be quick and we need to be honest. So, fortifying versus leveraging. So as marketers, we face trade-offs between the activities that fortify brand equity and those that leverage or capitalize on existing brand equity to reap some financial benefit. We, as marketers, can design marketing programs that mainly try to capitalize on or maximize brand awareness and image, reducing advertising expenses, seeking increasingly higher price premiums, or introducing brand extensions. So how do we fine-tune these marketing supporting programs? So as marketers, we're more likely to change the specific tactics and supporting marketing program for the brand than its basic positioning and strategic direction. So for brands whose core associations are primarily product-related performance attributes or benefits, innovations in product design, manufacturing, and merchandising are critical to maintaining or enhancing brand equity. Product innovations are critical for performance-based brands whose sources of equity reside primarily in product-related associations. Now, it is important not to change products too much, especially if the brand meaning for consumers is wrapped up in the product design or the makeup. And in making product changes to a brand, as marketers, we want to reassure loyal customers that it's a better product, but not necessarily a different one. Now, for brands whose core associations are primarily non-product related attributes and symbolic or experiential benefits, relevance in user and usage imagery is especially critical. So, non-product related associations may be easier to change through a new advertising campaign that communicates a different use or usage situation. Ill-conceived or too frequent repositionings can actually now blur the image of a brand and confuse or even alienate consumers. So it's dangerous to flip-flop between product-related performance and non-product-related imagery associations because there's a fundamental different marketing and advertising approach that each of those entails. So you can see we need to kind of be mindful of what we're doing here. So how do we revitalize a brand? Well, in regards to revitalizing a brand, we need to make sure that, do we need to do this? Because maybe in some cases we don't, and maybe in some cases we do. So you do have, though, prominent and admired brands that have fallen on hard times or completely disappeared. Some brands have made impressive comebacks in recent years as marketers have breathed new life into their customer franchises. Think about Burberry. Think about anything in fashion. And brands may have to return to their roots to recapture lost sources of equity or brand meaning, and may have to fundamentally change, therefore, to recapture market leadership. The comeback trail must be, inclusive of revolutionary changes to reinforce the brand meaning. So, to turn around the fortunes of a brand, we need to look at the original sources of brand equity. We need to make sure that we accurately and completely characterize the breadth and depth of brand awareness, the strength, the favorability, the uniqueness of brand associations and brand responses held in consumer memory, and the nature of consumer-brand relationships. We need to assess the extent to which key brand associations are adequately functioning as points of difference or points of parity, as we've talked about before in other lectures, to properly position the brand. And as marketers, we need to decide whether to retain the same positioning to create a new one, and if the latter, which positioning to adopt. Now, obviously these revitalizing strategies run along a continuum with pure back-to-back basics at one end and pure reinvention at the other. So with an understanding of the current and desired brand knowledge structures in hand, these two different options that we have to best refresh old sources of brand equity or create new ones to achieve the intended positioning are basically two ways. We can expand the depth or breadth of brand awareness, or both, by improving consumer recall and recognition of the brand during purchase or consumption settings, or we can improve the strength, favorability, and uniqueness of the brand associations making up the brand image. So, tactically now, we can refurbish lost sources of brand equity and establish new ones in the same three ways we create sources of brand equity to start with: by changing brand elements, by changing the supporting marketing program, and by leveraging new secondary associations. So, how do we expand brand awareness? Well, depth of awareness is often not the problem with a fading brand. It's the breadth of brand awareness, meaning consumers think of the brand in very narrow ways. If the brand has reasonable consumer awareness and positive brand image, the most appropriate starting point can be to increase usage by changing brand salience and awareness. So we can increase the level or quantity of consumption, quite relevant for impulse purchases, where usage increases with availability. We can increase frequency of consumption, attractive for market leaders, and we can do this by identifying additional or new usage opportunities via communications that highlight more frequent use in existing situations or in new situations. We can remind consumers to use the brand as close as possible in time to situations for which it could be used. We can increase perceptions of usage. We can provide consumers with information about when they need to replace their product. And we can persuade consumers of benefits of more regular usage. Now, we can also look at identifying new and completely different ways to use the brand as well. So, how do we improve our brand image? Well, we may need to create a new marketing program to improve the strength, favorability, and uniqueness of brand associations making up the brand image. And we may need to bolster any positive associations that have faded, or to neutralize negative associations that have been created and create additional positive associations. So as marketers, we need to identify the target market. We need to retain vulnerable customers. We need to recapture lost customers. We need to look at the neglected segments and identify where those segments are, and at the same time attract new customers. So regardless of the type or of target market segment, repositioning the brand sometimes requires us to establish more compelling points of difference. We sometimes need to make mature brands more contemporary, or we might need to even change brand elements. So therefore, that means adjustments to the brand portfolio. So we have three major strategies here: migration, acquiring new customers, or retiring brands. Now, in regards to migration strategies, this brand migration strategies helps consumers to understand how various brands in the portfolio can satisfy their needs as they change over time, or as the products and brands themselves change over time. Now, managing brand transitions is especially important in rapidly changing technologically intensive markets. Look at the phone industry. A corporate or family branding strategy in which brands are ordered in a logical manner could provide the hierarchical structure in consumers' minds to facilitate brand migration. Acquiring new customers. So we need to proactively develop strategies to attract new customers, especially younger ones. And the challenge often lies in marketing a brand relevant to vastly different generations and cohorts or lifestyles, because they're all different segments. And the challenge is even greater when the brand has a strong personality or user image associations that tie it to one particular consumer group. Retiring brands. Now, a fading brand may be retrenched to reduce the number of product types. Marketing support here can be eliminated if a large and loyal enough customer base exists. An orphan brand may have a customer base that is too small to warrant advertising and promotional expenditures. And a product may also be discontinued or divested or sold off. So what do we do with these obsolete existing products? Well, sometimes technological changes and shifting consumer tastes can often spell trouble for brands that have not kept up with changes in the marketplace. And discontinuing brands or deliberate obsoleting can pave the way for new innovative brands. But obviously the decision depends on the existing and latent equity of the brand as well. So you can see here, there are some strategies that we can go through. If it's a brand reinforcement strategy, is it awareness, is it image? What do we do from there? And you can see the outcome. Now, there's a figure for the brand reinforcement strategies, and there's also one for brand revitalization strategies as well. So let's sum up the chapter. Well, overall, we need to take a long-term view, and this dictates the different strategies that we have that should be proactive, that we need to basically build to design a maintenance program to enhance customer-based brand equity. We need to make sure we reinforce brand equity by actions that we do that consistently convey the meaning of the brand. And an extremely important consideration in reinforcing brands is this consistent nature and also a good level of marketing support.